Jack Prelutsky by Elizabeth Wells. Illustrated by Mary Teichman. Jack Prelutsky. A poem is a kind of writing with short lines. The words in a poem help show pictures and feelings. Do you like poems? Jack Prelutsky is a poet. A poet is someone who writes poems. Jack's poems are silly. He writes about ice cream that tastes like chicken. He writes about horses that ride on people's backs. In the bookstore, there are many books of poems by Jack. One book is called It's Raining Pigs and Noodles. Young Jack. This book is about Jack Prelutsky. Jack was born in 1940. He lived in New York City. When Jack was a boy, he liked many things. He liked to listen to music. He liked to draw pictures. But he did not like to read poems. All the poems he read were boring. They were not funny at all. School of Music and Art. More than anything else, Jack loved to sing. He went to the School of Music and Art. There, teachers taught him how to sing and how to draw. Jack wanted to be a singer. He did not think about being a poet. Jack. Later, when Jack was a grown-up, he had many different jobs. He drove people around in a taxi. He helped people move their furniture. He also worked as an artist. An artist is someone who draws pictures. Jack liked to work, but he also wanted to be happy. He wanted a job that was just right for him. Trees that sing. Jack started to like poems. He learned that not all poems are boring. Jack also learned poems could express or show his ideas. He could write poems about his feelings. He could write about the pictures he saw in his mind. In a poem, Jack could even pretend that trees can sing. He could write silly poems to make people laugh. A poem Jack wrote. Jack started writing poems. He showed his poems to his friends. They laughed and laughed. One friend had a great idea. He wondered if Jack could sell his poems. Then Jack could be a poet for his job. Jack went to a company where people make books. He showed his poems to the people there. They liked Jack's poems a lot. They asked Jack if he wanted to make his poems into a book. Yes, Jack accepted. In 1967, Jack's first book was ready. It was full of poems about animals. The poems were very silly. When children read them, they laughed and laughed. Jack was a poet. Wing. Hot dogs. Sky. Today, Jack writes many funny poems. He likes to write about things that do not happen in real life. One poem is about a pizza as big as the sun. One poem is about hot dogs that fly. The hot dogs have wings like birds. They fly through the sky on their fluttering wings. Spaghetti. Sometimes Jack writes poems about grand ideas that are big and important. Sometimes he writes about small, simple things like ice cream or noses. Often, Jack's ideas come from his life. He likes to eat spaghetti, so one poem is about spaghetti. Notebook. Not all Jack's poems are silly. He also writes scary poems, poems about things that make you afraid. One of Jack's books is about scary things, like dinosaurs with big teeth. He might write ideas for his poems in a notebook. Grown-ups. Child. Some people like Jack's silly poems best. Some people like his scary poems best. Some people like both kinds of poems. Jack's poems are sometimes silly and sometimes scary, but they are always fun to read. Children like to read his books. So do grown-ups. Sometimes parents and children read Jack's books together. Jack. Because many people like Jack's poems, he sometimes wins prizes. In 2006, he won an important prize. The prize was for writing great poems for children. Now, Jack lives in a city called Seattle. He lives with his wife, Carolyn. Jack is happy that children like reading his poems. He hopes they think about being poets like him. Jack hopes they will see how much fun poetry can be. Responding. Target skill. Understanding characters. Copy this chart. In column 1, write words that describe Jack Proletsky. In column 2, write things he likes to do. In column 3, write what his poems are about. Write about it. Text to world. Jack Proletsky writes some poems about animals. Write a few sentences about a kind of animal you know. Tell details about how big it is and what it looks like. Target vocabulary. Accepted. Express. Fluttering. Grand. Pretend. Prize. Taught. Wonder. Target skill. Understanding characters. Tell more about characters. Target strategy. Analyze, evaluate. Tell how you feel about the text and why. Genre. A biography tells about events in a person's life.